I know my favorite Goosebumps book ever is Welcome to Camp Nightmare. I think this is an excellent book. The camp setting is awesome in a Goosebumps story. I think it always makes for a great backdrop, and there's always some great things you can do story-wise with a camp setting. So, you could imagine, as I got through Fright Camp, this one's eh, and then Ghost Camp, very good, back to back, I thought, man, I'm just going to get through all the camp stories. I got through Fright Camp, Ghost Camp, and I thought, okay, one more. The Curse of Camp Cold Lake. This one, as I went into it, I'll be honest, guys, I went into it with a fair amount of skepticism. I love the cover art. I love the Goosebump camp setting. But I just finished reading Fright Camp and Ghost Camp back to back. And well, I was kind of over it by the time I got to Curse of Camp Cold Lake. But either way, I figured it was only fair to complete the quartet and take the plunge, no pun intended, into this final camp book. And, well, it was surprising, it was depressing, and it was cold. I think this is by far the darkest and the saddest Goosebump book I've ever read. Firstly, Curse of Camp Cold Lake follows Sarah Moss and her younger brother Aaron as they venture to the title camp, Cold Lake. There's an interesting dynamic at play here because normally, as you guys might know, a Goosebump book will follow a bumbling younger sibling who is constantly in the shadow of a more impressive, more heroic older sibling. But the Curse of Camp Cold Lake does something different and actually switches that dynamic. Aaron, the younger brother, instantly befriends many of his fellow campers, while Sarah is awkward, unliked, and kind of a sad protagonist. Sarah doesn't want to be at Camp Cold Lake. It sort of revolves around swimming, and she's a terrible swimmer, and her brother Aaron excels at it. She doesn't make friends easy. She's very apologetic about herself. She's very unsure about herself. And when she tries to make friends, it just doesn't work out. There's kind of a scene at the beginning of the book where she starts to try to befriend some of her bunkmates, and her attempt just completely falls flat. You just end up feeling awful for her. They end up seeing her as an outcast, and she already despises being there, which makes the entire situation twice as bad. So far, we've seen this before, right, guys? Goosebump protagonist who is a bumbling, sympathetic kid, but has a determination to set things right. And in many of the books, the main character pretty much always does set things right. There's a lesson to be learned. Now, when Sarah finally has her aha Goosebump protagonist moment, it's not what I had expected. This is where the Curse of Camp Cold Lake takes a very alarming turn. I'll show you guys what I mean. So chapter 12 ends. She had a bad run-in with many of her campmates. They made fun of her. Her brother is not very supportive of her. And she tries then to devise a plan to make them care. And this is her plan. Tomorrow, I murmur to myself, I'm going to show them all. And then chapter 13, I'll kind of summarize it for you. Basically, her plan is to walk out to Camp Cold Lake's lake. There's a giant lake there, obviously, as you can see from the cover. She walks to the edge of the lake, walks into the lake, and keeps walking until she drowns herself. Or she's going to she's going to fake it, basically. She's faking that. Yeah, you guys know what I mean. Wow, they really went there. R.L. Stine really went there in this book. I did not expect that to happen at all. By the way, how ominous is it that it's chapter 13 that this happens on? Anyways, I read this and instantly thought, wow, this is some dark stuff. Dark like, I don't know if a kid should read this, but she ends up in this kind of alternate world, this like dead world, a dead, snowy version of Camp Cold Lake, which is awesome imagery in the book. It is very cool and very creepy. And the world is kind of wrought with this Silent Hill-like atmosphere, which is a game that I love, by the way. And as a reader, I had no idea what to think at this point. I didn't know if the book was trying to say that she really did perish, or if it was maybe like a vision, like maybe she had a dream that she was trying to do this and, you know, she ended up in this strange world. But no, she actually does. She meets up with this ghost named Della that follows her, but Della is depicted as a ghostly white aura that, at least in my imagination, was pretty horrific. I pictured something like what you see on this cover. She's pretty horrific. And at the end of this, instead of Sarah's stunt gaining her any popularity, she is further outcast and then is haunted by Della for going into this different world. Della wants Sarah to be her buddy forever. And this whole "be my buddy" line is a pretty simple line of dialogue that ends up taking on a very malevolent feel after you read it for the 20th time. It's not funny. It's almost like Della is an alternate version of Sarah, a physical manifestation of the depression that she's feeling. You guys can take with that what you will. Maybe I'm talking way too far into a simple Goosebump book, but that's what I took away from it. But anyways, guys, the run-ins with Della continue, and at the very end, there's a twist involving one of her fellow campers. Long story short, I won't completely spoil the ending, but something strange did happen at the end. To me, it almost seemed like R.L. Stine accidentally wrote a story that was way deeper than your normal Goosebump book, because the ending sort of ends in that usual goosebumpy, anticlimactic, in some cases, way. It doesn't take away from the power that the story had, but it's almost like R.L. Stine said, "Whoops, gotta turn this back into a normal Goosebump book." And in the end, it felt strange giving this book a rating just because of how different it felt from the other mainline books. But if I had to, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It's truly something different and sad. Sarah is a sad character. This is a book that will stay with me, but I'm not sure I want it to. That was pretty good.